The Sexual Offense Treatment Board will now reconvene open session. We are now at 12:58 p.m. No final decisions were made and no votes were taken. The public and representatives have been moved back into the Teams room, and the media may once again report all board discussions and actions. So the next thing on the agenda is number 9, possible FAQ on forensic psychosexual evaluations. So I'm going to try to share my screen. And can you guys on Teams who do not have a paper copy in front of you, can you see the document?
Yes.
You never really know with all these layers of issues. So this is a draft that's been prepared to try to clarify for members of the public that have contacted HLO about this particular issue of when somebody is conducting a forensic psychosexual evaluation for court purposes, if they need to hold a certification from the SOTB to do this work. And we have gotten some feedback that there are mental health licenses, training, and education, and then there are certifications from the SOTB, which is the statutorily correct term. Under the 3rd section of this draft FAQ, I can certainly make some adjustments to be more clear that this is an SOTB issued certification. One of the many things that HLO deals with is that we have licenses, registrations, certifications, and unfortunately the term we use to refer to all of them is authorization, which is no way clear. So we can certainly customize this to reflect what the SOTB distributes. So if you would all like to discuss anything about this FAQ that we are hoping will clarify in the community, people who are doing this work and when they have to be certified.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we change the title of the question to be more reflective, and to be something, not the title of the document, of the question number 3 specifically. To say
the certification.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be part of it we would change. Do I need a certification from the Sexual Offense Treatment Board?
Yeah.
Yes. So any use of the word license would be clarified. And if I have to be, repetitive to make people very sure when we're talking about SOTB certifications, I'm happy to make those changes.
I don't know if I'm being redundant there, but that would be my recommendation.
No, not at all. Thank you. How are you doing, John? Very quiet. Doing okay?
I have I wonder if for number 3, it would be possible to, and I don't have the wording here, if there could be wording added to say that if doing a forensic psychological evaluation for the court, if one were to make recommendations or recommendations that would guide treatment, then they would need to be SOTB certified. But to make that very clear in there.
Oh, that's a good suggestion.
Okay. What, for my clarity, if I have to try to add language, what does one of these psychosexual evaluations contain?
Well, it's interesting because I just had one and it actually contained a professor assessment too, which I think you need to be certified to do, right? Mm-hmm. So it can,
It looks at kind of the whole picture of the person.
Could you leave the door open, please? Right. Thank you.
Including, I mean, it oftentimes is comprehensive, looking at all factors of the person, not just the the sexual behaviors, but their history, background, education, mental health history, physical health, family dynamics, family system, and ultimately, and then does some, has some tools and some some assessment tools that give ultimately, will give kind of recommendations around risk level in the community, and oftentimes will also kind of spell out treatment needs, sometimes depending on level, like, for example, outpatient treatment, or this person is more appropriate for inpatient residential or corrections, or, so it kind of speaks to the level of need and also the risk. That's usually what the kind of the overarching goal is, but it's trying to give a full snapshot of the whole person, and kind of all the factors that lead into why this person did the behaviors they did.
So who decides in this process, who decides to take that and impose it on a therapist who is responsible for rehabilitating and treating this person? Who says, this is it, take it and go? Who says that?
It can be various people. It can be the judge. In a case, if this is in a court case, if there is an evaluation that's done, sometimes a corrections department, a juvenile department, in my case, would want a psychosexual assessment up front before treatment starts, so that they can have kind of a guide when the treatment provider comes on board to say, here's what this assessment, the psychosexual, kind of recommended as far as placement, again, what level, and then also what, how long might treatment be. So looking for like a snapshot, this should maybe last a year. This probably should be done in the community versus in an inpatient facility. So as far as imposing it, there's no like, it's case by case with the level at which the juvenile department would say, we would like you to follow these recommendations.
Okay, because you keep saying recommendations, but you're not saying requirements, and those are different things.
Right.
And that's why I'm wondering and what is, if the therapist who's responsible for the treatment portion of this process disagrees, how much autonomy do they have?
I think it's a case by case basis. I think in a situation, which I obviously won't say specifics on, but in the recent court case we had, judge ruled that the person could be back in the house together with the victim, and she made the ruling that this is what she wants. So now we have to follow her judgment, her ruling, that they can have contact when we are saying explicitly we disagree with that and we don't want to do that. So in some cases, in this case, my example, it was pretty rigid. I guess we could come back and say, well, then we can't be part of this case. I guess there's some avenue, but it's a pretty clear directive.
That's, well, right, but that's one, I keep hearing the phrase case by case, and that's what worries me about adding language than saying, if this recommendation is used for treatment, then this person has to be certified. If there's gray areas and there's case by case, and then there's, because, we live in the world of may and must. May is a recommendation. Must is you could end up with a violation, right? So just how confident are you in a case by case situation at saying, okay, if any part of this is used, then you have to be certified. I might have to run that by, because that's almost taking a gray and a little bit of flexibility, and maybe pushing a gray into a black and white area. I don't know. John, what do you have to say?
I just wanted to go on a bigger, more global standpoint, is we all have licenses and certifications in various layers, whether that's from the licensed clinical social works or LPCs or whatever. And then we have certifications from, the SO treatment board to administer professor, to do a stable and acute, to, we have all these certifications and licenses. And so when I write a recommendation to the court or to a treatment team that they can, I'm putting my name and my credentials on that recommendation, and then they either accept it and do their best to follow it. If it's a court situation, in my history, I would fall under, the orders of the Psychiatric Security Review Board or a court order, and I would do my best to meet the orders of those judicial bodies. But also, I'm putting my expertise and my licenses and my certifications to say, we've made this attempt. The client is, resistant or unable to comply or whatever, but we're making these attempts, we're documenting those efforts. And so that comes back to, the SOTB putting their seal of approval on an individual writing a psychosocial, is that this person is qualified. This person is qualified and in good standing in the state of Oregon. And like Devin was saying, I can make a recommendation to his treatment team, and they'll do their level best to meet it. But if they're running into resistance, or if it's just flat out wrong, I'm based on some errant, the client had a bad day and resulted in a bad evaluation, they document that, and then it goes to the next review and so forth. So it comes back to whose seal of approval am I working on? And otherwise, as we talk about with complaints, if I don't have an active license, if I don't have an active certification, I'm making these recommendations and it goes wrong, that's on me. So that's what I'm saying is the verbiage that we're using on licenses and certifications and whether the person is in good standing. That's, the SOTB is standing behind that person. This person is has got the goods to do the job. Does that make sense?
No, I appreciate you sharing. I'm trying to figure out how. So do you support the idea of adding language that if the recommendation is used for treatment, then the person has to be SO certified, or are you saying that might be necessary language, or you want to craft it, or what do you think?
I think it gives gravitas to the person writing the report. Otherwise, a person with just an LCSW or an LPC writing a psychosexual, yeah, they may have the expertise and the knowledge to make a good one. But if a person uses a CSOT label on their name, they've got our seal of approval.
I support it.
Yeah.
Okay, I will have to check. I always get a little worried, especially when we're dealing with licenses from other boards that we don't have any authority over. And when we're saying, okay, if you're doing that kind of work, you don't have to be certified. But if you say something that ends up in part of a treatment plan, you do. And it sounds great until you start picking it apart and then going, okay, what does that look like? You get a complaint from, I would hope that somebody who was SOTB certified could look at something and decide in their professional judgment, along with their mental health license, this recommendation isn't going to work on this client. Or, I would hope that in the treatment process that it's not so that your judgment doesn't matter, that you would look at a client and say, okay, well, this came out of the courts, but in my professional opinion, this doesn't work. Do you have the authority to do that as providers?
And this is Heather Vogelsong. I just had a thought I wanted to run past. So the board has given lots of great feedback and information, and it sounds like maybe it could be divided in two ways. One, there's some specific things that HLO could do with this draft right now to get it out to the public, such as changing some of the wording in the question 3 and the answer, but that answer maybe could go directly out right now. And then given the feedback and the information that the board has stated, then maybe that could be looked at and brought back to the board at a later time to see what we can do with that with feedback and whether changes could be made to the document. And so it could go out in versions, but that way there could be some movement forward on the document. I don't know if the board would feel comfortable with that or HLO would feel comfortable. I'm just hearing a variety of things and some good feedback and thinking about how we can address all of that.
Absolutely.
So, this is Kelly. Once you send something out, it becomes like, that's what people are gonna refer to. So I don't know that we need to hurry and get this out versus get out what we really want to have out there. I just don't understand that there would be a hurry to get something that we already don't feel like is complete.
Right. Well, the only impetus I can think of, Kelly, is that we did get some questions from the community. And it was years ago about their role in this and whether or not they have to be certified to do this work. And it's been a long-standing question. So if it could go out kind of with this guidance, and then it could be iterative. We could, add some additional language if you want, or if you want to hang on to it, it's really up to you. But it's not just generated within this community. There were some external stakeholders that were really interested in the outcome.
Right, so they've already been waiting a long time. So, I guess the other thing, I was just thinking about looking at this, going backwards on this. Is there ever a forensic psychosexual evaluation that's given to the court that's not used in treatment? Can we really even say that? In which
I don't know,
case,
you guys are
then
the experts.
Then it does fall into needing to be certified.
Yeah, I was thinking that too earlier.
Yeah.
I can't think of a time where I've seen a psychosexual that hasn't then come to the treatment provider.
Yeah. And so it really is a tool for treatment, and therefore they should be certified.
Yeah, I
agree.
completely agree with that. It just drives treatment.
Yes. Because again, our job is to protect the public. And we want to make sure people writing these documents that are very much driving treatment at various levels of our society, the people writing them are licensed and certified.
Yeah.
This is a great discussion. So if I'm hearing the board correctly, you want to hang on to this document and do more work, or what are you guys feeling?
This is Devin. Does it make sense? And is this one of those areas perhaps that we see about, maybe it's too long to wait till May to have we need more conversation, it seems like, about this. Does it make sense to see, can we make another meeting sooner? What are the different options we have so that I hear you, Anne, as far as just wanting to get some guidance and information to stakeholders and to these folks too.
Right, because you guys are board members and you know how hard it can be to wait.
Right.
But imagine being somebody that we can't share this with, that keeps sending emails. Well, here's the question. If we put another meeting together, what might we bring to that meeting that we don't have now? Because our statutes aren't going to change.
Right.
I'm just wondering what would be gained if we revisit this.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is, Deb, again, my understanding is that that third point is gray because it is. It's not real black and white. And so part of it is trying to talk through. We have questions about what's the definition? What was just brought up right now? What's the definition of a psychosexual assessment that is part of the treatment process and what's not? I would agree with what was said that other than a psychosexual, sometimes that's given like a defense attorney will order and then they'll see the results of that. and then maybe they won't share it with the court. Pretty much every psychosexual, as a treatment provider, we would usually have access to, and we're taught, and I think it's best practice on our end to look at that, make the recommendations, and at least look at them, and if not, bake in those recommendations into treatment. So there's a question in the grayness of number 3 that maybe us getting together and talking more fully about, we could parse out like what does that mean? What is a psychosexual that is part of that treatment process and what is not? That's just my kind of gut reaction to your question about what would meaning do that we're not doing here.
Okay.
I agree with that. The only other thing though I wonder is in number 2, it says that sex abuse specific treatment defined the process of evaluation, assessment, and reformation. And if we see that psychosexual is part of the evaluation and assessment, then it's a done deal and it's already right there. So I don't know if we need more legal advice on how you define a psychosexual as something that's not part of an evaluation of a person who committed a sexual offense.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. I guess, yeah, just you guys are the providers, but you know, I was kind of wondering when you guys talk about recommendations versus requirements, when you get something like this, how much of this I mean, it's a place to start, right? It's like somebody coming into a doctor and saying, my head hurts, and that starts a whole conversation. How much of it is lockstep? How much of that is driving you versus as a provider, you say, well, this is a place to start, but it's not dictating my entire arc of treatment.
I think it can be considerable because not only does it drive us, but it drives the correction system too. You know, it drives what goes in probation, which also can drive us, right? It drives, you know, media restrictions. It drives what the person can and can't do if they're obviously if there's justice involved. I think it certainly has lots of implications depending on how many recommendations the evaluator makes, and you know the depth and breadth. I can't even speak of what those are. I mean, they can be really significant. And also, I think this goes back to the crux of this conversation. If you have a really poor psychosexual with somebody who has no idea what they're doing, we've all seen those. They're just meaningless, and we're left sort of directionless. So I think they can be very impactful, and that's sort of where we're at.
What kind of professionals, this is Ann, what kind of professionals work for the court? What kind of mental health licenses, what kind of professionals are doing these evaluations?
Psychologists and psyche.
So they're licensed psychologists and psychiatrists?
Not psyche.
What's that?
Which is Scott, how would you explain that? A little less.
So there's two psychologists licensed. One's a PhD, which is a doctorate in psychology, or doctorate in philosophy and psychology, and then a PsyD like I have, which is a doctorate in psychology, which is just more of a clinical degree. But also we have master's level clinicians who do these. I do them. Katie Gotch does them. I mean, I think we have a lot of people who do psychosexuals who are not at a doctorate level. They may come in a different name. I think psychologists want to protect the name psychosexual, so I think we used a different name. We might call them, risk evaluation or something like that. But they're essentially the same thing.
Okay. Well, what I can do, what I'm feeling from the board is that you don't feel like this document is ready to launch. Like there's more discussion that needs to be had. So what I can do, because I don't have all the tools at my disposal, I can go back to our partners and we can discuss your concerns. I can also look, I think right now we're putting all of our 2024 meetings on the calendar and trying to find a spot. we still have some racks and some committee meetings and some item writing that we've got to get on the calendar. And I can find maybe a spot. Hopefully you guys will be flexible about days. Because I know I have some boards that are like, oh no, we're only meeting on Tuesday and that's it. Like, that's the end of it. So I can talk to our partners about what we think we can do with this, how long it might take. And then at the same time, be looking at any hole in our calendar. And I doubt very much that you're going to have a meeting that's going to be this thick again anytime soon, right? Because there's a lot of stuff today. So if that sounds good, I can just plan on taking this back to the drawing board and hashing out some stuff. Does that work?
That works.
And we'll look for
Yeah.
it.
And this is Kelly. And so with that, getting another meeting in is awesome. And we had also talked about possibly adding some other agenda items.
Which
that
we will get to with other board business.
I will wait till then.
Gotta stick to the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, so we're gonna take directions on this one. And so now we have a contested case. So we have to go into a non-public session. Are we? Okay.
You used to bring us lunch.
You know, and this is why we do teams. You could be eating anytime you wanted. Okay. We have to switch everybody over. Do we, when we go into a contested case, do we want to take a break?
This is good.
Good?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, great. So I have to, the 3 dots and I join the room.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. The Sexual Offense Treatment Board will now leave the public meeting pursuant to ORS 1926901 to deliberate on a contested case at 1:25 p.m. on November 17th, 2023. The public and any representatives of the news media will be moved into a separate breakout room for the duration of the non-public session. The deliberation will not be recorded and no final decisions will be made.